In this video, we're going to look at finding sides and angles using trigonometry, SOHCAHTOA. So let's work through these. So the process that's involved, we must label the sides of the triangle first, hypotenuse, opposite and adjacent, or HO and A. Then you need to use that information to help you work out which trigonometric ratio to use, which is the sine, cos and tan. Then write down that trig ratio, if its sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, and then substitute in your values. Don't do too much in your head, show you're working out. And then we would rearrange to solve for the side or the angle. So come back to this process if you get stuck. Let's work through two. So finding a side first of all. So to decide on which trig formula to use, label the sides of the triangle based on where that angle is. So you can always label the hypotenuse, as we've talked about in a previous video. That's across from the right angle, the 90 degrees. And so we would label that H or HYP for hypotenuse. Now, you technically only need to label one other side, but I personally get in the habit of labeling all three sides. So the angle in question is that 40 degrees. Going across from 40 would hit that side over there. So we might label that OPP for opposite. Then there's only one left over that's adjacent, sitting next to the 40 degrees, and that's the 18, so ADJ. Now, sometimes I teach that you've got information about two of the sides, here for the hypotenuse and the 18 here. You might argue, do I have information about the X though? Well, it's got a label there, so that counts. The opposite has nothing, so you could cross that out, and that might help you work out which one has hypotenuse and adjacent. Whenever you're doing work on trigonometry, I would advise you to have written at the top of your page SOHCAHTOA, and that will help you. So we've got H and A. Which one are we going to use that has H and A? The ka here, the cos. So that would help us work this out. Oh, there's some extra labeling going on here in the video, and that's written over the top. So we've got the hypotenuse and adjacent, so we're going to use cos, as I said. So write that out. Cos of theta is equal to A on H, or adjacent on hypotenuse. Next line, you substitute in the values. So the theta is 40 degrees, the angle. The adjacent we know is 18. And then the hypotenuse is x. So put the x in. Now we need to rearrange for x. So it's being divided by x here. So we multiply through on both sides by x, which cancels it out on the right-hand side. X is being multiplied now by cos of 40. Cos of 40 is actually a number. Don't let it put you off the fact that it's got words written next to the 40. It is actually a number, so we can divide through by that number, and we would write out all the steps that you're doing, and then we would put that in our calculator, making sure you're in degrees, and then the units for this would be in meters. So do include your units. Next one, finding an angle this time. So you need to decide on which trig formula to use based on that angle of interest. That angle that you can see there, sometimes we draw it that way, is called gamma, another letter in the Greek alphabet. It's a bit like a Y if you're not quite sure how to draw it. It's probably drawn a little bit more like that without a loop, but you might see different versions in different textbooks. Label our triangle. Always label the hypotenuse first. Or in this case, we actually don't even need it because the information's about the two other sides. The side that's opposite the angle there, gamma, is the 12, and then the side that's adjacent next to it is 18. Again, if you've got SOHCAHTOA written at the top of your page, which one uses O and A? That's tan or tangent. So write out that formula, please. Then you substitute the values in. So the opposite side, OPP, was the 12, and then the adjacent was 8. And now this is what's called using inverse tan. So essentially you're taking the tan from one side of the equation and putting it to the other, but you have to do the inverse operation. That's what that sort of power to the -1 means, making sure you're using brackets as well. Calculator in degrees, and to get to that inverse tan, it's a shift. Usually on most calculators, a shift function, and it'll be above the tan button. And then the answer for that is 33.7 degrees. Again, making sure you put the units. Okay, hope that's been a quick revision, or maybe new for the first time for some of you. There's some of the questions that match. Thank you.